Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 28 of No Whining. Let's get into our very first wine of the day and of the episode. This is a 2022 Terredora di Paolo, Fiano and Aglianico. This is around a $25 bottle of wine. And this is coming from, of course, the grape variety on it is Fiano. The region is Fiano and Aglianico in the larger Campania region in southern Italy, which basically also encompasses Naples and the ancient city of Pompeii, which was a tremendously unfortunate place to be in 79 AD when Mount Vesuvius erupted. So anyway, be careful where you live. Both wines today are coming from the same producer, and this producer actually puts out pretty stinking tremendous tech sheets. So we are going to be benefiting from that. The tech sheet from our first wine today said that Fiano and Aglianico takes its name from the variety that the Latins called Vitis apiana, referring to the sweetness of the grapes that was irresistible to bees, which are known as api. The varietal sugar content is so high that a virtually sweet sparkling wine is made in the area that has many local admirers. Years of experiment have enabled winemakers to produce a dry Fiano, a wine of great elegance and refinement with an intense aroma and a harmonious flavor. Some other information: exposure is south-southeast of the vineyards. Soil composition is calcareous clay. Training method is bilateral guyot. Elevation of the vineyard is 1,800 feet. Now, fermentation and aging container is stainless steel tanked for both. Maceration technique on the skins for less than 24 hours, and then length of aging before bottle, 6 months sur lie, which means on the lees, and then length of bottle aging was 1 month. Okay, let's dig in. All right, this wine is clear, it's not hazy. It has a medium intensity of lemon color with, I would say, medium level of viscosity. All right, let's send it to the schnoz. All right, the wine is clean. It's got medium plus, I would say, intensity aromas. First one that's coming up pretty pronounced, pretty strong is lemon peel. Okay, we've got some pear going on here, a little bit of underripe peach, maybe some underripe apricot as well. On the floral side, honeysuckle is coming through pretty prominently. Lily, a little bit of chamomile. Getting some like roasted hazelnut out of this. A little bit of like toasted bread, biscuit type of aroma. Lemongrass, beeswax, definitely. Maybe just a hint of honey in here. Also maybe a little hint of ginger in here, along with some chalk and a little bit of fennel. All right, let's give it to the jaws. Okay, dry wine, like a medium plus body. I'm actually impressed a bit with the body on this wine. I thought it was going to be a little bit thinner on the palate, but it's really nice. It's got medium alcohol, I would say. I'm not sure what the exact amount is. A bottle says 12.5%. And then also medium in terms of acidity. Also getting then like medium plus intensity flavors. Basically all the same things and just confirming on the palate what I picked up on the schnoz. I'm not getting anything additional there. The finish is also medium plus, I would say, on this, the length of the finish, right? This is a very good wine. This is very good wine. It's a developing wine. I think it's drinking really nicely right now. I also think that it could have, with additional aging, it could bring out a little bit more of like some of those honey flavors, like the ginger. Some of the more developed tertiary characteristics would start to become a little bit more prominent. So this is a kind of like drink it now, or you can wait and drink it later, and it's still going to be a pretty phenomenal wine. Okay, that is wine number one. Let's get into wine number two. This is a 2022 Terredora di Paolo, Aglianico, Campania. This is around $20 for that bottle, and the region is Avellino in the Campania region of Italy. Again, the grape on this is Aglianico. This area is a hot Mediterranean climate. Additionally, the tech sheet says that Aglianico is a native Italian varietal that is widely diffused in Campania and in Basilicata. Now, probably the most well-known region in Campania for Aglianico is Taurasi. All right, but this is from kind of the broader region in general of Campania. It says it is of extremely ancient origin, and some experts argue that it was cultivated in the early period of Roman history and was introduced to Italy by the Greeks at the time of the foundation of Cumae, or the modern Cuma, or soon afterward. Terredora considers itself a guardian of this dynamic native varietal, producing significant quantities of the varietal at both the IGT and DOCG level. Now, a DOCG wine is very tightly regulated. I think DOCG stands for like Denominazione di Origine Controllata e Garantita, right? It's pretty close to that, and it's a very, very high standard for like the vinification practices, where you can source your grapes from, limiting the yields of the grapes. There's all kinds of regulations that go into it. So if you see or purchase a DOCG wine, you can rest relatively assured that you're going to have a really high quality product, whereas an IGT is more loosely regulated. So again, the vinification processes and practices are not as tightly regulated, nor is it as specific of a geographic area, or as small of a geographic area where the actual grapes are coming from. Winemakers can pull the grapes from a much larger area, plus they don't have as many of the stringent regulations, and they can be more creative in the winemaking. That doesn't necessarily mean that IGT wines are not as high quality. A lot of times they're not, but in other times, and one of the most famous examples is Super Tuscans, right? Those were, right, they didn't fit into any of the definitions, right? And so those were kind of outcasts, but they're incredible wines and incredibly famous today, but they didn't fit within the tightly regulated, something like a DOCG. So I hope that makes sense. So DOCG, going to be really high quality. IGT, typically not as much. However, there are exceptions to that rule. In this case, like if all the grapes were from Taurasi, for instance, it would probably be a DOCG wine and also at a higher price point, whereas being an IGT, grapes for this particular wine are probably sourced from a much wider area in Campania. Okay, it also says in here soil composition, calcareous clay, training method, Gio, elevation, 1,350 feet. Harvest time was end of October, which is interesting because our previous wine from the exact same producer, that was harvested in the first 10 days of October on that Fiano. All right, fermentation container, stainless steel tanks, maceration technique on the skins for 7 days at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Type of aging container, 50% stainless steel tanks, 50% oak, French oak barriques. Length of aging before bottle, 6 months. Length of bottle aging was 2 months. All right, let's get into this Aglianico. All right, this wine is clear. It's not hazy. I would say that this is like a medium intensity. I'm going to call it garnet. You could also call this potentially a ruby fading out to a garnet rim, but I am going to call this garnet. And also, little observation here that like the edges, the rim or the meniscus of the wine itself has a little bit of a watery edge, which would indicate some aging, which makes sense because this is a wine from 2020. So it's got over 5.5 years of aging on this already. All right, this wine is clean. I would say it's got like medium plus intensity aromas of first one I'm getting is actually cooked red cherry. So a little bit of fruit development here already out the gate. Yeah, dried blackberry, some prune. We're getting into some development on the fruit profile. In other words, because this is a little bit older wine, we're not just detecting fresh fruit aromas. We're getting cooked fruit aromas, dried fruit aromas. That very much what happens as a wine gets a little bit of time on it. All right, let's go back in. Getting some dried rose petal, some toast, like roasted herbs as well. Okay, vanilla. It's also showing some earth, a little bit of like musk, some game also. Yeah, forest floor. So the last few that I've mentioned are also indicative aromas of a wine with some age on it. Finishing out maybe with a little bit of pepper and some smoke. All right, let's give this to the jaws. Dry wine, full body, medium alcohol, but high in terms of acid and tannins as well. Medium, maybe medium plus intensity flavors of all the same things that I picked up on the schnoz initially. The finish is medium on this wine, so not an especially long finish. Overall, I would say this is a pretty darn good wine. It's drinking really well right now. I don't get the sense that this wine would benefit from any additional aging, so I'm actually very glad that we're drinking it right now, because I think if you lay this down for much longer, I think the wine might fall apart a little bit. Right now it's drinking really nicely. Okay, let's bring both these wines in and pick a winner. Which one do you like? Which one did you like? Which one did you enjoy at home? I am going to give the edge to the Fiano. I actually really like this wine. I think it's a much better wine. So this is one of those cases where the DOCG wine did outperform the IGT, which is not unexpected, but certainly doesn't happen all the time. So really enjoyed the Fiano. I do think it's a superior wine. The Aglianico, it's also really nice, but just doesn't quite have the same level of quality. Now, I did want to tell you something again before we go. I put a couple of videos, links to videos down in the description. The first one is it's a short video on this particular region, right? So it's a really short video. It's also narrated in Italian, and so it's kind of fun to get in the spirit of things. So if you just want to check out the region, see what it actually looks like, this area, I think that can give you a broader and better and deeper perspective for where these wines are coming from. The second video is longer if you want to explore a little bit more extensively. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and both these wines. I'll see you back here in episode 29.